Greetings, Dumela, Sawubona, Sakpase, Namaste, Abshin, Dubra Otra, Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, Buenas noches, bonsoir, good evening. And also Habari Gani. Habari Gani. This is part of Kwanzaa. Welcome to it. Now, this is a little amazing special edition for day 4 of Kwanzaa, which is Ujamaa. If you do not know, day 1, Umoja, day 2, Umoja, unity, day 2, Kujichagulia, self-determination, day 3, Ujamaa, collective work and responsibility. We chatted yesterday with another great person. Tonight, we're going to have another person. Day 4, Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics, which is the focus of this evening. Day 5, Nia. Day 6, Kuumba, creativity. And day 7, Imani, faith. Tonight's conversation is going to be about Ujamaa, which is cooperative economics. And on my digital couch coming up pretty soon is none other than Dr. Julianne Malveaux, who is, you've seen her in many places and spaces, and she'll actually be on some additional spaces right after this call. She's well known for appearances on national network programs, CNN, BET, PBS, NBC, ABC, Fox News, MSNBC, and so on. She is an amazing commentator in economics and in information that is very pertinent to our civic world. A committed activist and civic leader, held many positions in women's civil rights and policy organizations, currently serves on the board of the Economic Policy Institute, as well as connected with the Rainbow Push Coalition, the educational branch, has lectured at more than 500 colleges and universities and corporate events. She's focused her efforts on print and broadcast journalism, and she is an author. We're going to talk tonight on 2 very important issues. One being, of course, economics, because that's the day that we're focusing on today, and also some new developments in military and women and how that has impacted how we as communities see one another and respect one another's purpose and position in our daily lives. And so let's welcome Dr. Julianne Malveaux.
Sure. Yeah, Dorian, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Always a pleasure. Thank you for your work in lifting up our community and raising issues that are often not raised. It's just good to be here. And Habari Gani.
Habari Gani, this is Ujamaa. This is the day we're going to focus on Ujamaa and cooperative economics. I'm so blessed to have you here. And so we're going to focus for the time that is ours. And if anyone is, of course, watching live, you are welcome to drop comments in the box. We're going to be here for a specific amount of time. So get it in. And then if you are having comments or questions afterwards, you can definitely drop it in and we will do the best we can to respond accordingly. So we're going to hop right into it because today is, we're focusing on day 4 today, cooperative economics. I have a very, very specific question. Now, whether it's a live stream of podcasts, lectures, workshops, conventions, there's always a focus on like, what can we do? How can we get our organizations together and on one foot or on one accord and one mind? How can we make sure that financially, because you are an economist, a go-to person pertaining to economy and Black wealth, and how we can work on that as a united front. My specific question is, because we're always out here doing this work. So how can community organizations, churches, civic groups, we're a part of a lot of them, conventions, first of all, they do a great job, or they do work on empowering their members about financial literacy, how much money you have, what you can do with it, where it can go, should go, might go. But how can we take that information and give actionable steps towards addressing our own wealth gap? Because there's the haves and there's the have-mores. But how can we make this like a concerted effort to get all of these organizations together to focus on the goal of getting us to another step in managing our money, not just managing it, but growing ourselves as a united community? So what's
That's a huge question, but let me give you, and I can't answer.
Yes,
but I can give you
your opinion is what I want.
along the way. First of all, you can't play money unless you got money, which means how much you have or how little you have, you got to manage it well. In other words, I know people, I know people very well who exist on a $3,000 a month Social Security check, and they thrive. They go out, they hang out, they eat out, they thrive, but they manage their pennies in ways that basically feed them. So I would first question I was, what's your money story? If you're before you get to the cooperative, let's get to you. What's your money story? What you got, what you don't got, what you owe. A lot of people don't know what they owe. Um, so just what's your story? What how much money do you have? What if you had to leave the country today? What would you be able to put your hands on? Just I mean, just hypothetically, not to say you have to leave the country today, but to say let's just think about our liquidity. And the liquidity is what you can do at any moment. What could you put your credit card down on and get? How much cash did you put in your pocket? So we talk Ujamaa, cooperative economics. The first step is your economics. How secure do you feel? Second step is what can we do together? Because that's what cooperative economics is. What can we do together? Um, we have to, in order to thrive as a people, we have to have some control over our institutions, our NCNWs, our National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, I used to be president of, which is part of NCNW. But we have to be able to say we have some control over our institutions, which means do we give? Do we give? A lot of people tell me that they're members of this and members of that. When was the last time you gave? To Delta, to NCNW, to AMBPW, to anything else. The fact that you gave one time 20 years ago is not helping the organization. And so, what are you doing to ensure the survival and the organization that's ensuring your survival? Cooperative economics is about what we put together, what we do together, how we do it together. And part of that is giving. And so I just want to lift that up as we have our conversation. We have to talk about giving, and we have to talk about giving to our people. I think the other thing that we really have to look at is the ways that money flows and how we flow in it. What do I mean by that? Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. In other words, what do you pay your housekeeper? Or do you pay your housekeeper? I know too many people, oh, yeah, my cousin, she's just hooking me up. She's working. Pay her. We need to value each other's work just like we value our own work, which means we need to say, this, you pay it. And I think it's really important for us as a people to think about what we value, what we pay for, what we don't pay for. And it's okay to have friends, colleagues who are volunteers and all that. It's okay. But at the same time, we really, really, really need to think about, do we ask for what we need and pay for what we want? So we need help. We ask for that, but we go get crazy stuff. I'm trying to keep it clean for you, and so we pay for what we want. Cooperative economics is about an ecosystem and ethos of what we can do together, and there's a lot we can do together.
I agree. Again, we are participate in a lot of these organizations that have overlap, whether it has a political agenda or a social justice agenda or health agenda and economic agenda. And there are moments where people might feel I'm sort of investing, because it is an investment, right? Where you do look for a return on that investment. And sometimes that return on investment doesn't come immediately, but it comes in like collective social capital. And that social capital, of course, needs to shift towards how is this moving the needle for the entire community. And sometimes it is my observation that, let's say, the people that may sit at the top of, a variety of institutions, again, houses of worship across the spectrum, across the aisles, civic organizations across the aisles and color scheme and financial background and what have you, that there is a conversation that you in a united front should have, so that our collective agenda can move forward. And of course, that's a larger conversation. It cannot necessarily be answered in this few moments that we have. But as people do their investing and they're trying to say, what is our end goal? It's something that, from an economical standpoint, instead of there being like a lot of little I's, that there's a big us. And prayerfully, the big us becomes the focus, and not the little I's saying, well, I want to run it this way, that way, the other way. That there has to be a united platform that we stand on, so that we as the people move forward together.
Well, you said quite a word, and that word does not resonate with our people. Let's be really honest.
That's why I'm
We
having this conversation.
big we and the little I's, but the little I's overcome the big we. We don't we, and I put quotes around it because I just had a conversation with someone. I said, I'm tired of people saying this is what we need to do. Because what you mean we? Who is we? When you talk about that, if we worked as a collective, obviously we'd be further along. But we live in predatory capitalist white America, where we are set up to be competitive as opposed to collegial. So you have everybody has their own black leader. That cracks me up. But they pull them out, Sharpton. Obama had Sharpton because he didn't want Reverend Jackson. I don't know. Trump got a whole what kind of, I'm trying to be nice, but he got a bunch of chuckleheads who black people who they glom around him. But then Biden had his too, and they weren't always great, quite frankly. If they were, he would have been reelected, or Kamala would have been elected. So when you talk about what can we do, there's not a we agenda. And if there's no we agenda, what can we do? Now, there are things that various people will put out there. Boycott this. I agree with that. And I will boycott this. March on that. So folks throw it out there, and some of it sticks and some of it doesn't. And the big lack is black people like to talk. We like to talk about black people this and black people that. It all sounds really great. But at the end of the day, who's setting the agenda? Who's following the agenda? And, people, like I said, well, black people need to, well, black people should, well, black people. I'm a cynic. I've been around the block too many times to tell you, I want us to be appropriate. I don't see it.
And until that day that the we becomes the central focus, whoever the collective we is, of course there's going to be a pecking order of like who's going to lead, whose agenda is going to be put forth. And it sounds, unfortunately, like we get stuck in that minutia versus, hey, we have people who need to be housed, we have people who need to be employed and own their own businesses, that which suits a need that is a need and not necessarily a want. People need to be educated, and where is that going to happen, and who's going to pay for it, and what books, like all of that. So as institutions that we have, that which we do well in, beside, or instead of going to look for someone else outside of our community to give the economics to us to do the thing, that we take the money that we do have, like you said, the $3,000 per month on, whatever the fixed income is, and take your collective work and responsibility, let's say the day three Ujamaa, and impart it into the cooperative economics that doesn't necessarily cost the arm and leg that we think it does. What it costs is time. What it costs is our talent, our intended talent, and what it costs is a treasure, and where we plant that treasure, right? Where we
Yeah,
invest that
that's a
treasure.
really great way of putting it, because it really talks about, what have you done today to move the community's agenda forward? You're not going to change the world today, but there are things you can do that include very small things. And I think that we
Precisely.
need to think about some of the small things. That I think about some of the people who basically are not being fed, either financially or spiritually. How even stopping to speak to someone is sowing into something. Now, it's not the answer, it's not the be all end all, but it does seem to me, when we think about Ujamaa, cooperative economics, we think about the word cooperative. Okay,
Right.
what does it mean to be a part of a cooperative? So, does that mean that you tithe at your church? Does it mean that you pay your dues to your sorority? Does it mean that you are generous when you see others and slipping them $1 or two or something? There are a lot of questions that we could ask and answer and answer. But the biggest question is, what have we done to advance a collective?
Thank you, and thank you for dropping that seed, which is a seed that some people need to continue to hear, because based on their life experience, their lived experience, they may be at a moment, well, maybe I didn't have that extra dollar in my pocket, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but maybe I have a couple of quarters that I can do that. Maybe I was not able, or didn't feel like I could tithe to my church, or maybe I was not able to participate in a civic, or fraternal sorority organization, or social justice organization, and now I can participate. Now I can invest that way, with, again, my time, talent, treasure. Maybe I was not able to parlay, and I'm saying that lovingly, in social justice or political spaces, but maybe now I'm able to do some voter registration, or know what some of the politics of my local community. I spoke to Professor James Small the other day about, working in concert with the elected officials, if that is your thing, but yes, holding them accountable, but also going to those like the community board meetings. I wasn't raised doing that, but now I'm at a place and space that I could do that, and I know that that's part of my investment that's going to impact the cooperative economics of my local area. So
So, Dorielle, one of
yes,
the things that I want to just inject here is hoping that those who are watching us understand the nature of predatory capitalism. In
mm,
other words, understand the ways that structures extort surplus value from people. In other words, you
okay.
work someplace and you're getting paid 18 an hour, but they're earning 25 an hour
Hmm.
for your work. Just think about that. The reason that I need to raise it in the context of cooperative economics is because too frequently we just say, oh, gee, that's how it is. But what we're seeing around the country, especially with workers, is people saying, that's not how it has to be. And so I would just encourage people to invest in learning about the economy. In other words, you don't have to buy a book. You can go online. You can Google me, or a bunch of other people. Um, but what
Google.
you have to do is be clear about what's going on, so that when you are dealing with employers, you're clear about what you're giving and what you're getting. Um, eh, you are involved in labor organizations, unions, or associations because it's important. A black man in a union earns 50% more than a black man doing the same job who is not in a union.
Wow.
So basically, one is making 12 an hour, one is making 18 an hour. It's a union who did that. So a lot of us have been fed this trope of unions aren't good. Unions are very good. A black woman in a union earns about a third more than a black woman who's not in a union. So let's be clear about, as we talk about Ujamaa, we have to talk about the ways that as a collective we come together to improve our possibilities of thriving, of not surviving, of thriving. So, from that perspective, I just want people to think about that as we think about this fourth day of Kwanzaa. And I love Kwanzaa. I can't tell you how much I love Kwanzaa. Celebrated our first one in the basement of Fenwick Hall in Boston College. What year was that? That's
That's
about 1970. Yeah, the winter of 1970, my first Kwanzaa. And
wow.
I've enjoyed it ever since. And we all do enjoy and give praise and honor and thanks to Dr. Malana Karinga for his bringing us this way to celebrate us. But as I said, don't forget the predatory capitalism.
So those who are watching, make sure again do your homework, your own independent homework, and you don't. Yes, books are important, but if you can't get your hand on one quick, you can go to Google University. There's information to get you some information on predatory. I'm sorry,
Predatory capitalism.
predatory
How
capitalism.
do
Thank
people
you.
steal from us? How do people steal from us? That's all. How you get stolen from.
Thank you. Thank you. So in the last few minutes, I do want to touch on a movie that has just come out, and that is the 6888. The movie about the first Black Women's Army Corps. We've talked about NCNW. Shout out to National Council of Negro Women and our president, Siobhan Arline Bradley, and I know she will see this. And so I know you are going to see the movie, but you actually shared some information that some of the families who are actually a part of that experience.
Absolutely, yes. My friend Audrey Edwards, who was a editor at Essence, her mama was one of those people. My mentor was not a member of the 638, but she was the first Black woman to serve in the Coast Guard. Her name was Dr. Olivia Hooker. She was a
Mhm.
Tulsa, Oklahoma Black Wall Street survivor. And that's actually how I met her. We were both scheduled to speak at Syracuse University, I don't know how many years ago. And I had the cutest jogging outfit, but I forgot my tennis shoes. So I'm in her room cussing up a storm. Like, She said, "Go look in my suitcase. What size do you wear?" I said 10. So when she said, "Take those," she said, "I cannot have a Black woman cursing about not having her shoes." And we bonded from that. Dr. Hooker, as I said, was the first Black woman in the Coast Guard. There's a Coast Guard building named after her. She was an amazing grace, just an amazing lady. We loved her so very much. But the story of the women in the military is a story that has not been told. And the amazing ways that Black women took leadership have also not been told. And so I relish, Dorielle, this opportunity to talk about Dr. Hooker, but also about the women, the Coast Guard, the Army, the
Right, the
way,
6888. The 6888.
yeah, yeah, the 6888. These women, they paved the way for us, and we can never forget it.
You are absolutely right, and I also have to take the moment to give a special and a shout out. I think is too diminutive. I want to almost say like a holy purple hug to Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who again
Mm.
is the founder of National Council of Negro Women, who was instrumental. Who's instrumental in making sure that um, the women had place in space in serving. How, you know, she was had the ear of the First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, and was able to press the mark in order to make sure that they could serve in the way that they could, and that they would be allowed. And so I definitely wanted to make sure that if you needed another reason to see it, which I know you already have 1,000 reasons, or 6,888 reasons, that'll be a part of your watch party in the next few days. And so I would love to hear your perspective at some point, once you see it, and just see the magnitude of the power that those women had, and the ingenuity and the smarts that they were using in order to do the work that they did to get that mail through, and also stand up to the institutional racism that existed then in full force, and to some extent that still exists today.
Doriel, I enjoyed being with you. Let me just, as we lift up Dr. Bethune, also lift up, as we have earlier, but let's do it again, Dr. Height, the longest serving president of the National Council of Negro Women, um, kind of a mentor of mine when I didn't get on her nerves. I'll own it. But then I get on everybody's nerves, so it's just kind of what it is. But anyway, this has been a delightful conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the opportunity, and we'll of course do this again.
All right. Good night. Good night. Good night. Thank you so much, Dr. J. And I'll be speaking to you shortly. Have a good night.
Take care.
To those who have watched, I thank you so much for joining us again. This was our conversation for day 4 of Kwanzaa, Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics. And as you have just heard, and please continue to stay tuned for more of our conversations on not just Kwanzaa, but principles that we should all live up to and incorporate into our lives, not just the principles of Kwanzaa again, but values that will inspire, that will influence, that will impact the lives of others. I thank you all for watching, and peace and blessings. Have a great evening, and take this with you. If you are able to impart some of your talent, treasure, and your time to improve the life of others, do so. Because when you do it for others, you're really doing it for yourself, and you're doing it for your own personal and collective community. So stay connected, set your notifications, click the subscribe button so that you know exactly when we're going live, moving forward. Peace and blessings to all.